Okay, so science engagement, science writing of all kinds, from blogging to vlogging to non-scientific article writing, magazine article writing, you name it. This kind of science writing is incredibly necessary, and there are incredibly talented people who do it, right? Science journalists, bloggers, you name it. All very vital. But here's the thing, here's the catch. We don't hold scientists, the ones doing the research, actually conducting experiments, observing whatever, we don't hold them accountable to be clear, to write clearly. Because the thing is that most scientific articles aren't that transparent even to people in the fields, not even to the experts themselves. A lot of people just don't write clearly, and a lot of people do. And I'm certainly not here to name names. I wouldn't even be able to think of a list, actually, one side or the other. But it's just a general phenomenon, actually, that I'm talking about. It's just a general occurrence. And sometimes it's the elephant in the room, but often it actually is even talked about. And yet, what are the solutions that we come up with? Sometimes we say, okay, we need better science journalism. But again, the science journalists themselves might also be confused if the experts in the room are also confused. We need the source to be clearer. The source, when it's at its clearest, can be interpreted by everybody, expert and non-expert alike. And no, that doesn't mean that science writers have no place in society, quite the opposite. It's an incredibly important and vital place in society. But a little clarity would go a long way from the source, as I said. If everything's clearer, then it's clearer, and people can focus more on the writing and expand it and tell a great story, even more than the scientists themselves have time for. And that can be the niche filled by science writers. That's totally possible, and that would be a great thing, actually. It's not at all a contradiction in terms to have clarity in both cases. Indeed, that total clarity would go a long way to also making everyone's lives easier. See, when academics talk and they're not understood, it's frustrating to them. And when people are talked to by academics and they don't understand, it's frustrating for them. So everyone goes around quite frustrated that they don't understand better. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm dumb for not understanding. Sometimes people think, oh, isn't everyone dumb because they don't understand me? And sometimes even the reverse is true. Sometimes people think, this academic is so dumb because they don't speak clearly. Their brain is a jumbled mess, or I don't believe their theory, even though maybe their theory is really good, but it's just not being communicated in a good way. So, like I said, it's not such a bleak picture. There are lots of initiatives, there are lots of, good occurrences in this world related to this. There are a lot of people trying to make things as clear as possible, but there are a lot who, whether they don't care or they don't have the time, they think, right, because there's this also this, I would call it a myth. I think there's this impression that being clear takes more time. I think it actually takes less. I think a lot of things are quite clear. Now, sometimes, okay, sometimes you get stuck down a rabbit hole of your own making, and then you just say what's on your mind, and that isn't clear. Happens to all of us in conversation, and then you add, a lot of kind of research pressure onto that. And you might get a bit of a kind of, thick soup of, of thoughts. However, I do think that a lot of clear communication doesn't take more time because it's actually just the most natural way to talk about it. There are a lot of traditions which arise which actually make things less clear. This is true in science, and actually, just to take another example, this is really true in language learning. So most language textbooks make language much harder to understand than without the textbook, even sometimes, if people just listen to what was around them. And of course, you can make it even clearer by adding, methods that sort of dissect, right, languages. And the same is true, for most scientific papers. You can actually dissect them and find out a lot more by skimming and dissecting than reading everything. But we do want you to read everything. we should, and we should want you to read everything. We should write in a way that you read everything. So that has to come from within, as it were. It can be translated as many times from without, but it needs to also come with it from within. So yeah, look, thanks for listening a lot, and really appreciate it. And I hope that we can all make a clearer, more understandable academic and intellectual atmosphere out there for all of us, lay, academic, something in between, for all of us to enjoy, right? Because that's the goal. In the end, at the end of the day, science should be a work, you know, a labor of love and a work of passion, right? And we all want to enjoy it. So let's take some steps to do that. It can be done. Anyway, take care.